And I done changed my life, but I will go in that water behind my family.
As you should.
We don't have to sit back and be afraid to say we're not a perfect family. You know, nobody has a perfect family because y'all all done been through something.
That's right.
Even
Absolutely.
everybody here on this show done been through something. Like, man, is y'all serious? Well, so think about this, right? At one time, my brother was going to get 8 years. He had already did 4. You do is sign off on it. But sometimes you got to listen to the people that love you.
Right.
You know, instead of listening to the jailhouse people. You know, you got a brother in there, so you know it.
Right.
Like, you could talk about this stuff.
Right.
How did you and c-mur end up in the same prison?
C is one of the most loyal people you could ever meet. Like, C the kind of dude will give you the shirt literally off of his back. We had shared stories, stuff that we reminisced on and kept each other laughing about, you know. But the flip side of it was I hated to see him in that situation because I knew that he had no out date.
That was Master P revealing something heavy about his brother's C-murder. Something that changes how people look at this whole situation. According to him, c-mur could have been home years ago if he had accepted an 8-year plea deal and listened to the people who truly cared about him instead of the voices around him inside prison. But c-mur turned the deal down. He chose to fight the case in court, went to trial, and ended up getting a life sentence without parole. Now, years later, Master P says the same people who once surrounded him in prison are the ones causing problems for him. And the hard truth? There's nobody stepping in to rescue him from that environment now. What Master P explained next was how everything reached that point, and how deeply it has affected their family ever since. Sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones worth listening to.
I'm going to walk behind mine. I'm just letting you know. So all that stuff y'all see, don't believe none of that stuff y'all see on the internet.
A few years back, there was like the back and forth with you and c-mur and Monica.
Short, I just told you, this my family. I would go to war for my brother. I don't even play behind that. We don't even have to get into that. Like, we family. You got brothers and sisters if you do. You know, all that stuff you see, that don't mean nothing.
In early March 2026, Master P sat down for an interview that caught a lot of people off guard. Not just because he spoke publicly, but because of what he was finally willing to reveal. For more than 20 years, the public story about the c-mur case had stayed inside the same boundaries. The message was always the same. He is innocent, witnesses lied, the system failed him, and the family is still fighting for justice. Those points had been repeated at rallies, in Instagram videos, in interviews, and even inside court filings. But this time, Master P said something the public had never heard before. He revealed that his brother had once been offered a deal, 8 years, but he refused it. The interview quickly exploded online. A clip posted by My Mixtapes on X spread fast, going viral across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. The deal Master P talked about came during a very specific moment in the case. It was around 2006, roughly 4 years after c-mur had already been locked up. At that time, his first conviction had been overturned, and the system was preparing for a retrial. Corey Miller had already served about 4 years behind bars by then, and that is when prosecutors reportedly put an offer on the table. The deal was simple on paper. He had already done 4 years, and the agreement would have required him to serve 4 more, 8 years total. Sign the deal, finish the remaining time, and he could have walked out around 2010, maybe even earlier if time credits reduced the sentence.
How did that feel knowing, you know, you've been fighting so long for your brother, just trying to get him out, and Louisiana Supreme Court or United States Supreme Court denied the 10-2 known as racially rooted?
Well, so think about this, right? At one time, my brother was going to get 8 years. He had already did 4. You do is sign off on it. But sometimes you got to listen to the people that love you.
Right.
You know, instead of listening to the jailhouse people. You know, you got a brother in there, so you know it.
Right.
Like, you could talk about this stuff.
That was the math. That was the opportunity sitting right in front of him. But c-mur said no. He stood firm on his innocence and refused to sign anything that suggested he was admitting guilt. Instead, he chose to go back to trial and fight the case again. Then Master P dropped the phrase that quickly became the headline everywhere: jailhouse people. That wording caught attention because he was not talking about random strangers. He was talking about the type of people who move in and out of someone's life while they are incarcerated. The ones who give advice, make promises, and build influence inside those prison walls. Meanwhile, his family was outside, pushing for him, working on his case, and trying to fight for his freedom from the outside world. Master P made it clear that the situation is complicated. In the same breath, he still said, "My brother is innocent." But he also admitted that the decision to reject that plea deal changed everything. For him, the real turning point was the gamble, choosing to place his freedom in the hands of a jury in Jefferson Parish, one of the toughest court systems in Louisiana, instead of taking a guaranteed 8 years and eventually coming home. Then came the line that really shook people. The sentence that, according to Master P, sums up this entire 24-year nightmare in the simplest way possible. He said, "We would not be dealing with it." Just like that. One statement that flips the entire story on its head. Because think about everything that followed over the next 2 decades. More than 20 years inside Angola prison, hunger strikes, endless court filings, appeals reaching higher and higher courts, Supreme Court denials, a family spending years traveling to prison visits, paying legal fees, speaking out online, and standing in front of cameras trying to keep the case alive.
Master P brother, c-mur, they saying he got his appeal denied again. Now, some people are saying this is his final appeal and that he's not going to be able to file another appeal. I think if he wasn't in Louisiana, he probably would be out, you know. With no weapon, no DNA, and the 2 witnesses recanting their statements, they should release him. And I know it's got to be hurting him because if he was released, his life would drastically change. Drastically.
Public disagreements, emotional interviews, and a constant fight that stretched across an entire generation. According to Master P, none of that might have happened if the deal had been signed back in 2006. If Corey Miller had accepted the agreement, the timeline would have looked completely different. 4 years already served, 4 more to go. That means he could have been walking out around 2010, back with his daughters, back with his family, back living a normal life outside those prison walls. But he refused the deal, the retrial moved forward, and the outcome changed everything. When the jury returned its decision, the vote was 10-2. The judge then handed down the sentence, life without parole. That happened on October 22nd, 2009. From that moment forward, the legal fight became a long chain of appeals and petitions, each one hoping to break the case open again. But the answer kept coming back the same way. No. The state appellate court rejected the appeal in 2011. The Louisiana Supreme Court declined in 2012. The U.S. Supreme Court followed with another denial. In 2013, a federal district judge also said no. And then came the most recent decision.
Long as you know the truth and you know God, then you'll be good. Because my thing is, now I'm about kingdom building. I'm about doing the right thing, and I'm about being a servant for our people and educating our people. I mean, we losing so many young people. I had Nipsey Hussle in 8th grade in my program, so my program been around for over 25 years.
On February 4th, 2026, the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled unanimously. 7 justices, 1 decision. They said Miller had exhausted his options for state-level review and did not qualify for another filing. That ruling closed the last remaining door at the state level. Still, Miller spoke out and made it clear he was not giving up. He said the fight was not over and promised to keep pushing forward. And just days later, Master P sat down for that interview and revealed to the world that 8-year deal that could have changed everything. The timing of that revelation was not random at all. Master P spoke about the plea deal right after the courts delivered another crushing decision. After watching his brother take hit after hit from the legal system for more than 20 years, something finally came out that he had kept quiet about for a long time. The truth about a decision made nearly 2 decades earlier, a decision he believes changed everything. According to Master P, the turning point was not just what happened that night at the Platinum Club. It was not only about the witnesses, the arguments in court, or even the jury's final vote. In his eyes, the real moment that shaped the entire situation happened back in 2006. That was when a man who believed he was innocent decided to risk everything and fight the system instead of accepting a deal that would have eventually brought him home. Master P has spoken openly about the weight of that choice. Watching someone you care about refuse a path that could lead them back to their family is not easy. And his perspective carries a certain clarity because he built his own life around making strategic decisions and thinking long-term.
Now, your name's what?
C-mur.
What'd you name yourself c-mur for? You know me, I grew up in the Project Calliope.
You done seen a lot of it.
I done seen a lot of it. So, you know, I just...
it makes me so sick.
Yeah.
How old were you when you saw your first murder?
Probably about 10.
Seeing his brother choose the opposite path left a mark that has lasted for years. But through all the frustration and public debate, one thing has never changed. C-mur is still his brother. Family is still family. Even when the courts rule against you, even when the public argues about the case, that bond does not disappear. And the reality is simple but heavy. The deal that was not taken is still the deal that was not taken. Every year that has passed since 2006 carries the weight of that decision. Time kept moving, the case kept unfolding, and the consequences kept stacking up in ways that can never really be reversed. To understand why rejecting that 8-year deal eventually turned into a life without parole sentence, you have to look closely at what C-mur stepped back into when he chose to face another trial. And that story begins earlier, on January 12, 2002, at the Platinum Club in Harvey, Louisiana. The entire case traces back to a chaotic night on January 12, 2002. Inside the Platinum Club in Harvey, Louisiana, a fight suddenly exploded into a massive brawl involving somewhere between 15 and 20 people. In the middle of that confusion, a 16-year-old fan named Steve Thomas was beaten and then fatally shot once in the chest. The situation quickly spiraled into tragedy. Reports later revealed that the club had skipped using metal detectors for VIP guests and celebrities that night. That decision became a major point of discussion after the incident. During the chaos of the fight, 2 eyewitnesses stepped forward. Security guard Darnell Jordan and another witness, Kenneth Jordan, both identified Corey Miller as the person who fired the shot.
Coming from where I come from, coming from poverty, you would think that you would outlive your kids, and that was the mission.
Yeah.
And I feel like going to my daughter's funeral, I feel like I went to my own funeral, and I don't even want to go to no more funerals.
How were you notified, Percy, that she had?
My other daughter called me. It was the worst call that a parent can get. And knowing that you are successful, and my sympathy go out to everybody that lost a child.
But the case had major gaps that people still debate today. No murder weapon was ever recovered. There was no DNA evidence tying Miller directly to a gun. Even with those missing pieces, he was arrested within days and charged with second-degree murder. The first trial happened in 2003, and the jury returned a guilty verdict. But the story did not end there. In 2004, the conviction was overturned after it was revealed that prosecutors had not shared criminal background information about 3 key witnesses with the defense. That discovery forced the case back open and created a new window for negotiations. By 2006, Miller had been released on bond and placed under house arrest. During that time, he continued recording music and publicly maintained his innocence. That was the moment when prosecutors offered the plea deal, 8 years total, but he refused to accept it. The retrial finally arrived in August 2009, and the courtroom drama intensified. The same 2 witnesses returned to testify again. The jury then spent more than 13 hours deliberating across 2 tense days. Reports later described serious stress inside the deliberation room. At one point, a juror even became physically ill from the pressure, and an early verdict was rejected by the judge because it was not legally valid. Eventually, the jury delivered a final vote, 10-2. Guilty. One juror later claimed she had been heavily pressured to change her original not guilty vote during deliberations. Then on October 22, 2009, Judge Hans Liljeberg handed down the mandatory sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole. At one point, someone who had shared a cell with C-mur spoke about the case after spending time reading through the legal paperwork himself.
No matter how long they sentenced me to, I knew I had a day on the paperwork that stated, after this day, you go. He was in a dorm that took care of a lot of the guys that were infirmed. All them old cats in the prison love C. A youngster that rapped, he landed in the dorm that C was in. He didn't want to be in that dorm because the dorm would have had a bunch of older guys. C was the orderly that took care of him. I went to go holler at C that evening.
After going through the details, he explained what he believed the conviction really came down to. Then he pointed out something that many retellings of this case barely mention. He brought up the Baton Rouge incident. That moment refers to a completely separate situation from 2001 at a place called Club Rags. According to reports from that event, Corey Miller fired a weapon into a crowd after being denied entry to the club. That situation was not the Harvey nightclub shooting, but it still became part of the story shown to jurors. The jury responsible for deciding the Harvey case was reportedly shown footage connected to that Baton Rouge event. Think about the position they were already in. They walked into the courtroom hearing the name C-mur, a stage name that already carried a strong image in people's minds. Then they were shown video of Corey Miller holding a gun inside another nightclub. At that point, many people believed the presumption of innocence became much harder for the jury to hold on to before deliberations even started. And then there is the stage name itself, c-mur. That name sold records and helped build a powerful rap persona, but inside a courtroom it created a completely different effect. The image tied to that name walked into the courtroom before Corey Miller even sat down at the defense table, and it stayed there throughout the entire trial. As Boosie later spoke about publicly, this was not some small side detail. It shaped the psychological foundation of the prosecution's argument. The case did not only rely on proving what happened during the chaos inside the nightclub, it also pushed the idea that Corey Miller was the type of person who could commit that act. The name carried part of that weight, and the Baton Rouge footage carried the rest. The trial happened in Jefferson Parish, and Master P has openly described that area as one of the toughest places in Louisiana to fight a case like this.
But I gave them the work, but think about it, everybody's not gonna believe in your dreams. They only see the people that's big.
Right.
Even though I was listening to Tupac, but I was saying, man, I've been going through so much stuff, I can create my own journey.
Right.
And so that's what you guys gotta do. You gotta believe, you gotta see other people and appreciate and celebrate other people's success, but you have to be unique.
The environment of the courtroom itself was already intense before the jury even began deciding anything. Boosie later talked about the bigger picture in Louisiana, explaining that the situation was not just about one case. There was a larger legal structure behind it that shaped how verdicts were reached. And in C-mur's case, that structure became very real. When the jury delivered its decision in 2009, the vote was 10-2. Today, that might sound shocking to some people, but at the time, Louisiana allowed non-unanimous jury verdicts in serious criminal cases. In fact, Louisiana was one of only 2 states in the entire country that still allowed that rule. The history behind that system runs deep. Legal scholars have traced it back to post-Reconstruction Louisiana, where the rule was created during a time when lawmakers were restructuring the legal system. Critics have long argued that the policy had the effect of weakening the influence of black jurors in trials. Then in 2020, the United States Supreme Court stepped in with a major decision. In the case of Ramos versus Louisiana, the court ruled that non-unanimous jury verdicts were unconstitutional. From that moment forward, criminal convictions would require a unanimous jury. But there was one crucial detail. The ruling did not apply retroactively to older convictions. That meant C-mur's case stayed exactly where it was.
How was your faith affected by your brother and the situation that he ended up in?
Even when my brother got killed at a young age, he wanted to question God, but when you start realizing that, you know what, everybody got a time. Then when my brother went to prison, I love my brother, I'll go to war behind him. But this something that, you know, he gotta ask God to get him to where he need to go, because that's what I did.
The law changed, but for him, the change arrived too late. Master P has spoken openly about the historical roots of that jury system while discussing his brother's case. Meanwhile, the post-conviction battle kept moving forward year after year. In 2018, both Kenneth Jordan and Darnell Jordan signed affidavits recanting their original testimony. They later claimed police had threatened them with separate criminal charges if they did not identify Miller as the shooter. Those recantations quickly caught national attention. The story was even featured on the investigation discovery series, Reasonable Doubt, and once that episode aired, hip-hop fans and social media exploded with reactions. Many people believed this was finally the moment that would break the case open and lead to a new trial. For a brief moment, it looked like momentum might be shifting. Supporters argued that if the key witnesses were now taking back their testimony, the entire foundation of the conviction should be questioned. Online discussions grew louder, and many people felt the case was finally reaching a turning point. But the court saw it differently. In January 2019, a state judge ruled that the recantations were suspect and not reliable.
And I knew what people wanted. So at that time, you had NWA, you had Ice Cube, everything was black. The Ghetto Boys, everything was dark. And so when the people come in, I say, you know, I'm gonna lighten this up. So that's where the whole, I put the white suit on, the ice cream man. And so when people come in stores, and I say, you know, by me being on the streets, I gotta give more for their money. So back then, I don't know if y'all noticed, it was the most records you would get was 12.
The court pointed out that both witnesses had identified Corey Miller multiple times long before the trial even started. Because of that reasoning, the judge refused to grant a new trial. The legal fight kept moving through the system. In November 2023, U.S. District Judge Sarah S. Vance reviewed the case at the federal level and upheld the conviction. The ruling stated that Miller had not presented clear and convincing evidence that a legal error had occurred. Then came the decision in February 2026. The Louisiana Supreme Court ruled unanimously to deny another review, effectively closing the final door at the state level. While the legal battle was unfolding in the courts, life inside prison was becoming its own struggle. C-Murder's health and living conditions became another serious issue. In 2018, he launched a hunger strike at Angola, protesting conditions he described as cruel and unusual. Then, in 2021, he started another hunger strike at Elaine Hunt Correctional Center, accusing the Department of Corrections of medical neglect. Civil rights attorneys Benjamin Crump and Ronald Haley Jr. stepped in to demand action and draw attention to the situation. Boozy later spoke about why someone in that position might turn to a hunger strike. For many incarcerated people, it becomes one of the only ways left to force attention onto what they say they are going through. And that is the full reality of the situation C-Murder has been living inside for years.
And then people come and go, women come and go out your life, all this stuff, man. Right. When that time go, you're gonna find out who real or not. Your family gonna be there no matter what. Right. And sometimes, you know, I understand jail is tough. You don't even want to be around your family. So, oh man, let me go do what I gotta do. But people still out here fighting for you. People still love you. Right. But you gotta understand that the only way you gonna find it out, you gotta get in that Bible and let God lead you to what he need to lead you to, because it's already tough. It's tough on these streets. Right. Like people dying every day on these streets. Right. But in prison.
By that point, the situation had become incredibly complicated. A conviction built around testimony that was later recanted. A jury verdict reached under a rule that was eventually declared unconstitutional. A trial held in a parish known for aggressive prosecution. And on top of all that, a stage name that prosecutors were able to frame as part of the narrative presented to jurors. Then came the years that followed. Appeals denied. Federal court rulings that upheld the conviction. And every time the case moved through another legal door, the answer seemed to stay the same. No! The state courts had already reviewed the arguments again and again from multiple directions, and each time they declined to overturn the outcome. And hanging over all of it was the decision from 2006, the plea deal that could have taken a completely different path. The door that might have allowed him to walk away from the system years earlier was the one he chose not to take. For the Miller family, that revelation did not land in a quiet moment. It landed on top of more than 20 years of public attention, legal battles, interviews, and emotional pressure that kept pulling the family in different directions. None of them chose the situation, and none of them ever had full control over how it unfolded.
When I wasn't all the way right, I started asking God, like, man, show me something. You know, I don't want to die out here. I want to do what I got to do. I want to change, and he opened the doors when I wanted to change. So that's any man.
Are you trying to keep him in the right mindset?
Yeah, I mean, that's my family, dog. Like, there ain't nothing to talk about. We gonna make it happen. I mean, but he still got to make it happen too.
To understand why Master P spoke so openly in March 2026, you have to look at what those 20 years really looked like for the Miller family, the sacrifices they made, the things they lost along the way, and the answers they are still waiting for even now. Corey Miller and Percy Miller grew up together in the Calliope projects in New Orleans' 3rd Ward. Life there came with challenges from the beginning. Their father left early, and much of their upbringing came under the guidance of their grandmother, known in the family as Big Mama. They grew up alongside their siblings, including Silk the Shocker, their sister Jermaine, and their brother Kevin. But the family experienced tragedy long before the court case ever began. Kevin was killed in the early 1990s, a loss that left a deep scar on the family. In communities like that, pain like this often stays unspoken, because saying it out loud does not bring the person back. Master P responded to those early hardships in a different way. He focused on building something bigger. After receiving $10,000 from a medical malpractice settlement connected to his grandfather, he used that money to open a small record store in California. That store eventually grew into something much larger, No Limit Records.
And so those were the things for me. So believe in yourself, understand 10% is the talent, 90% is the business and marketing, right? And don't be afraid to invest in yourself if you believe. And don't let people tell you that you're not gonna make it. Because a lot of people told me that, man, you ain't got what it takes. That's cool. But I wanted to let y'all know you're gonna fail. When I spent my last, that's when I really got hungry. Because I know it was no turning back. It's nowhere but up. So don't be afraid to invest in yourself.
By 1991, he started bringing his family into the business. Corey Miller joined the movement. So did Silk the Shocker. What started as a small independent hustle slowly turned into a real empire. The Miller brothers helped create one of the most powerful independent labels hip-hop had ever seen. By the late 1990s, No Limit Records was everywhere. The label was dominating charts, moving huge numbers, and changing the music industry. C-Murder's albums were also finding massive success. His 1998 project Life or Death debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and went on to sell over 1 million copies. At that moment, it looked like the Miller family had truly escaped the struggles of the Calliope projects. They had survived everything the Third Ward threw at them: poverty, loss, pressure from the streets. Yet they still built something that reached the entire world. For a moment, it felt like the story had already been written with a successful ending. Then January 2002 happened, and everything that followed slowly started pulling the family in different directions. In the early years after the conviction, Master P stood firmly beside his brother in public. His position never wavered. In 2018, he organized a rally at Xavier University in New Orleans, standing in front of a crowd and demanding justice for Corey Miller. On that stage, he spoke about the witnesses who later recanted their testimony. He pointed to what he believed were serious failures in the legal process. He framed the situation as larger than just one case, describing it as a justice issue, a race issue, and a Louisiana system issue. And beyond the public speeches, there were years of quiet support behind the scenes. Master P helped cover legal expenses, supported prison visits, and helped take care of C-Murder's children. For a long time, the Miller family, especially Master P, carried a huge part of the effort to keep the fight alive. Then in 2020, something unexpected happened that changed the public conversation. Kim Kardashian and singer Monica both announced they were working to help push for C-Murder's release, and that moment brought a new spotlight onto the case. Then another moment from inside the prison caught public attention. C-Murder spoke about the outside support he was receiving and referred to Kim Kardashian and Monica as his angels and his ride or dies.
I said, see, I got my little partner just come in the dorm. He said, see that bag right there? I said, yeah. He said, we making that for him now. He said, I've been watching him for 2 days. He ain't got nothing. So the next day, my partner come down there and was like, man, I woke up and they had a bag of stuff by my bed. I said, I told you. C had an old school dude in a wheelchair. He was like the scout. He used to look around the dome to see who ain't got nothing. See, take that up, you know? So he always looked out for those cats.
That message quickly spread online and reached a huge audience. But when Master P saw it, the reaction hit him hard. He went straight to Instagram and recorded a video that felt raw and emotional. There was no heavy editing, no polished speech, just frustration and pain coming out in real time. He began talking about their grandmother, Big Mama, the woman who helped raise them both when they were growing up. Master P explained how she had spent years visiting Corey in prison. That meant long drives, strict searches at the prison entrance, hours of waiting, and then sitting across from her grandson with glass separating them during visits. Those trips to Angola were not easy. The process of entering the prison could be exhausting and humiliating, and she went through it again and again just to see him. In Master P's view, that kind of loyalty had been there long before celebrities ever became involved. In the video, he said he still believed his brother was innocent. He still said he wanted him to come home. And he also said he appreciated the attention that Kim Kardashian brought to the case. But what he struggled with was the order of recognition. From his perspective, people who had just arrived in the story were receiving louder praise than family members who had been standing there for years. Then he made the announcement that shocked social media. Master P said he was stepping back, no more financial support, and no more prison visits. He spoke about the emotional cost of those visits, the stress families go through just to walk through Angola's gates, and the pain of watching someone you love from the other side of prison glass. Online reactions were immediate. Many people interpreted his words as abandonment, but that quick interpretation often ignored the deeper context behind what he was actually expressing in that moment. One thing Master P never did was say his brother was guilty. Even during the most emotional moments, he never changed his position about the conviction itself. What he kept stressing instead was something deeper. Gratitude. Gratitude for the people who had carried this burden for years. He talked about their grandmother, their parents, their siblings, and the extended family members who had all been part of the struggle. The aunties, the uncles, the relatives who spent years supporting the fight, visiting the prison, and standing behind Corey even when the case became exhausting and public. In Master P's eyes, that loyalty had to mean something. At one point, he even addressed c-mur directly through the camera. He pointed attention toward the people who were actually present the night Steve Thomas lost his life. According to Master P, many of those individuals moved on with their lives after the situation while Corey remained behind bars. His argument was not that c-mur deserved prison. It was the opposite. He believed his brother was carrying the weight of a situation while others connected to that night were no longer facing consequences. Meanwhile, the Miller family spent years dealing with the public spotlight, the criticism, and the emotional cost that came with fighting such a long legal battle. And underneath every rally, every interview, every social media video, there was always that one moment hanging over the story. The decision back in 2006. The plea deal that existed but was never accepted. Even through the public disagreements, one thing stayed consistent. Master P never stopped praying for his brother. He never stopped believing that Corey should eventually come home. The tension that surfaced in 2020 did not last forever. By 2025 and into 2026, Master P was once again speaking publicly about the case and pushing attention toward it. The love between brothers never disappeared. The frustration simply grew louder for a time, before settling into something that felt less like anger and more like deep, lasting grief. Master P's journey from the Calliope projects to building No Limit Records plays a huge role in how he looks at his brother's situation today. He came from the same streets, the same struggles, the same environment, but at some point he made a decision to change direction and build something bigger. In his mind, that decision opened doors that would have never existed otherwise. It changed his entire life. And because of that experience, he believes certain moments in life become turning points. Moments where a person has to let go of pride, let go of the fight, and choose a different path forward. That is why the 2006 plea deal still weighs so heavily on him. To Master P, that deal represented one of those moments. Not surrendering to the system, but choosing life outside those prison walls. Choosing family, choosing time that can never be replaced. But c-mur saw it differently. He chose to stand on his innocence and fight the case all the way through the courts. And that fight inside this particular system and inside this particular state has now stretched across more than 2 decades. As of March 2026, Corey Miller is 54 years old. He remains inside Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His legal battle is not completely finished yet. The case is now connected to proceedings at the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals after the federal denial in 2023. At the same time, a petition for factual innocence under Louisiana's 2021 law is still pending. The case continues to raise questions. The witnesses who once testified against him later recanted their statements. The jury rule used in his conviction has since been ruled unconstitutional. Yet every court that has reviewed the case, state and federal, has still reached the same conclusion. The conviction stands. Boozy once summed up the entire situation in a blunt way. In his words, the only thing that could truly close this story is freedom. And that is where the case still stands today. Master P said something powerful when he spoke about the plea deal. He said his brother could have been home by now. He said it clearly, on camera, for the entire world to hear. And the fact that c-mur is still sitting inside Angola today, still maintaining his innocence, still waiting, still hoping, makes that single sentence one of the most painful parts of this entire story. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who wants to understand this case better. Drop your thoughts in the comments too. Do you think the outcome could have been different if that deal had been taken back in 2006?